Hello Augeta, malo lele, taloha ni, talofa lava, nisabola, namaste, whakalofa lahi atu, and welcome to the very first episode of KOKO CHATS, where we have conversations with our people of the Moana about all things money, business, politics, fiscal changes, finance and property. I'm your Wantoka and host Danté Fyfe, and today's guest is a Papua New Guinean mortgage advisor, Taviri Ono, who has spent over 20 years in the banking and mortgage industry, helping many of our tangata Moana into their very first homes and pay their mortgages off faster. He shares with us his inspiring journey from village life in Papua New Guinea to a very cold concrete jungle of Otautahi, Christchurch. Let's get into it. Well, Taviri, welcome to KOKO Chats.
Thank you, Danté.
Thanks for joining us. I know a lot about you, but for our viewers out there, maybe give them an understanding of your background, where you come from, how you grew up.
Yeah, sure. So, thank you very much first for inviting me along, Danté. So, originally, I'm originally from Papua New Guinea. So, I was born and raised in Papua New Guinea. Grew up in an area, Papua New Guinea is massive, obviously, compared to New Zealand and Samoa and the rest. So I grew up in the northern area in a province called Morobe and Lae, and pretty much all my education was up there. We came from dad was the only one working. Mum looked after us, and we didn't have a lot, but I was very fortunate that my education was with the, for one of a better description, with the Palangi kids. So that was my education. Where I'm from a little village itself around the Port Moresby, the capital, and that is it's a tough area. It's poverty is it's very has a very strong hold in the area that I come from. So it is a tough place.
What's the name of the village?
Mahuru. Yeah, so Mahuru is where we're from, and then it's linked to a bigger village that most people probably know from called Kila Kila, which was up there, and it's a big area up there. So so that's pretty much where I would say I'm from. I know you said about how I came to New Zealand. I came here when I was 21. I followed this young lady down here, and we started a family together, and I initially worked with Westpac Bank, and that's how I got my first job. I was a banker from when I was 18 or 19, and it was pretty much through banking until probably about 9 years ago that I decided I needed a bit of a change.
Just going back, your family life growing up, you said your dad was working, your mum was looking after you guys. Money was tough.
100%, 120%.
Was money talked about in the household?
No, it was talked about to the point of, you're not allowed to know about this, and that's as much education as I have out of money. I know we struggled a heck of a lot, because I know sometimes, that's why I was always very careful working, is that, you just don't want a repeat of how you grew up. So, we grew up tough. I can remember times of, going to bed without food, having no food in the house, going to school with no food. And, you're going to school, all these white kids who open their lunchbox and they got all kinds of food and all that. But not trying to feel sorry for myself, but the question was it tough? Yes, it was. It was extremely tough. Like most of the islands, I know my dad had to also try to support his family back in the village at the same time. So it was a tough upbringing, but 100%. There was never any talk about money except when it came to things such as giving to the church. Then yes, we've given heaps. But we haven't eaten anything. But that's all right. You're not recording stuff.
Do you think that was pretty common, like in the village, life, a lot of your extended family, friends around you, was it just pretty common to be struggling? Like, everyone was struggling, only the fathers were working.
Yep.
Was there any sort of work or small bits of income that your mum or any of the women in the village tried to...
just with a small little market. So, whether you're selling vegetables or there's something in Papua New Guinea, it's a areca nut, we call it a betel nut. And there's a big trade in that. So that was a small, I know a lot of my mum's friends and friends' mums that I've known, that's a business and it makes good income out of that. Another one was what do you call it? We call it salimoni. Somebody's taking a debt from you and they're going to pay back with interest. Like loan sharking type of thing. But not too much in like a steady income. But
What did Dad do?
My dad was a shipping manager. So he the company he worked for, it wasn't. They would do shipping around the Pacific, so he ran that business for one of the Australian companies, and we used to go down there and look at all those gigantic ships and walk around and see those kind of things. So
it's amazing. He would have obviously had to work his way up to that position.
And I think that's what rubbed off me. I mean, all I ever saw him do was work. I still remember sometimes he'd come home, because a big ship had come in that needed to get work done. He'd come home, sleep for an hour or two, and then shoot back to work because he needed to get there. So it was a good thing for me because I saw that. So I think from a young age, somehow it stuck in my head that you got to work hard. So that was.
Where do you think he got his work ethic from?
Probably from my grandfather. He was a very strong old man. So my all his kids, my dad included, they all had very good jobs. They all had that drive. My other uncle worked for a big logistics company in Port Moresby. One of my other uncles was a renowned surgeon in Papua New Guinea, and one of my other uncles was he was High Commissioner for Papua New Guinea over to Fiji and I think one of the other islands. So from his, I suppose that's where it all went through his kids, and
That's awesome. What made you decide that New Zealand, like you mentioned, you were following a then girlfriend or
fiance,
fiance,
yes,
What made her and you guys decide to come to New Zealand?
My ex-wife, they lived in Papua New Guinea. Her family were up there. They lived there for a few years, so we sort of grew up together. For us, we were starting a family. We believed that it was better to start a family here in New Zealand, education-wise. The same education, the great education that we can get here at what we call a public school here would be almost a private school in Papua New Guinea, and things like that. So education, obviously, I hate to say it, but safety was one of the big things. We want to bring up our children in a place that is safe, that they can walk down the road and not be in strife, that kind of stuff. So and that was that, and I was fortunate enough, as I said, I was a banker in Papua New Guinea, so I was fortunate enough to get a transfer from Westpac Papua New Guinea to Westpac New Zealand to make sure I got a job when I got here. So
let's step through that. How did you end up in the bank? In Papua New Guinea.
Sure. My background is in these kind of things. I wanted to be a designer. I was an artist. But like most old island men, my dad said, that's not a job we do as men. So
old school.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. My auntie was high up in Westpac, so I got in through nepotism, I believe. So I do not want to admit that, but it was through hard work that I was able to, because I mean, at the end of the day, you still got to prove that you can do the job. And you know, I was fortunate I was dedicated enough to work my way up through banking, from tellers all the way up to bank manager roles with Westpac. So yeah, no, I went through the whole banking system, and
It wasn't a part of your interest though. You wanted to be a designer.
yeah, it wasn't.
Like why banking? I mean,
Yeah,
other
why
than your
banking?
auntie.
Yeah, sure. When you realize, you know, you got to eat. Food doesn't come out of nowhere. I weighed that up. That was the big thing. It's like, you know, as most island boys, when you're the oldest, you know, there's a certain amount of pressure, and that was one of the pressures that was, I felt, was pretty much, you know, because I stayed with my grandparents in the village at the time I was working bank, and the expectation was that I would feed them, look after them, and my extended family, cousins would also join. So, you know, you feel that pressure from straight on that, you know, you got to work, because you're not working for yourself, you're working for, and yeah, it was, that was probably one of the big main things, is that, look, you know, get a job and then just get on with it.
Gave you purpose in your
100%,
teens, really.
100%.
I feel like young guys really need purpose.
It was the best thing I ever did, Danté, because I could have gone down. I had friends who, like I said, I grew up in an area was tough, so I could have gone down the other way. But I had older cousins who were, I must admit, they were pretty good. I still remember getting into a bit of strife, and one of my cousins actually took me aside and he looked at me and he said, "You've got a chance," and I still remember this. He said in our language, not English. He said, "You got a chance to not be here. You know, don't do what the boys are doing. You know, you've actually got a chance to not even live this life." And yeah, so I've always been very grateful for that opportunity. And work was great, as you said. You know, I was lucky I saw a dad that got up and went to work every morning, and it must have been hard for him, because you know if you come back and you know there's not a lot of money and your family hasn't got food, you know. But the good thing was, you know, I heard this somewhere. You know, he still came back home, you know, and that's probably the best thing I ever saw. And anyway, yeah, so it was purpose. Waking up, I had to catch 2 buses to get to work. So you knew, you know, wake up, drive, get ready, catch the buses, get to work, come back, and yeah, it was best thing.
How many siblings did you have growing up?
Including me, there were 5 of us.
Yeah.
Now there's 4. My sister after me passed away a few years back. So yeah, there's just 4 of us now.
Yeah. And you were the eldest of, you know, 4 other siblings. That's a lot, and I feel like that's very common for a lot of our Pacific families, especially the ones back in the islands. Big families. Yeah, there's a lot that falls on the eldest.
Oh yeah.
Or the older 2.
Yeah.
Especially if the ages are quite spread. I think one thing that I really took out of your family and your wider family is you had really good role models. Uncles that did this, your grandfather's siblings, I think you mentioned. Really good role models to have, and not everybody has that opportunity. Yeah. So you're working at Westpac.
Yes.
Your fiance.
Yes.
And you make the decision. We're going to move to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Aotearoa for to start our nesting.
Yes.
Tell me about that process.
Sure.
What did that look like? Was it easy? Was it hard? Did you have to put some money together?
Yeah, a bit of that. And look, you know me. I there was a fair amount of praying, as you know, in my belief, Danté, and you know, it just happened. I cannot. There's no other way to it. Obviously, I talked to the bank. I said, look, I'm moving to New Zealand. You know, how can we ensure that I can get a job? So, you know, Westpac were very, very kind. You know, they worked, Westpac Papua New Guinea actually got in contact with one of the senior managers, knew a senior manager here, and that was how it just happened. So obviously you got to go through all that visa, all those things, and I think they still do it to this day. You have to prove that it is a proper relationship and all those kind of things, all that kind of carry on.
Yeah.
But we had known each other since we were kids. So the process of coming down here, I came down here with one suitcase. That's everything that I owned in the world, and then we started life. And I was fortunate that my first job was at Westpac St. Martin's. It's the widest branch you can ever get in Christchurch, and it was a lovely branch. Really good people that I worked with, and who taught me, because still, although you're educated in a Western system in Papua New Guinea, you're still an island boy. So I had to get used to a lot of culture. It was a big culture shock for me. But as in anything, push my way through it. Just try to make friends understand, and big thing was the joking part. It took me a while to get used to that. Like taking the mic.
Danté.
It took me a while to sort of get and understand what when people say that they kind of think you're a pretty good guy. So there was a lot of cultural change was a big thing.
It would have been really tough for you both to leave your families back in.
No. At that time, her family had moved back to Christchurch. Christchurch is their base.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so family, and she was already here as well. So we sort of, I was in Papua New Guinea, and then we would come visit each other, and then finally said, "Oh well, enough of this."
So mostly tough for you then.
Yeah,
Leaving four siblings, your
that's a mum and dad,
parents,
and
grandparents.
so we do it sort of opposite to you guys. You bring all your families. I try to leave them all back in Papua New Guinea. It was. I'll be honest, it was very tough.
Yeah.
Very tough not having, family.
What were their thoughts?
My mother was okay. My dad wasn't, because most island boys were brought up a certain way, and there's an expectation to be leading after your father and after your grandfather, and things like that. So I know my family weren't happy. I know my uncles weren't, because they told me. So which is good. I was just going to do what was right for me and what I felt was going to,
Absolutely. Is there a Matai type system in
Yeah.
PNG? And was there an does your dad have one?
Yes.
Was expected to be passed on to you?
Yes. So I passed from my grandfather. So we're part of those families but we don't do the markings as your culture does. But it's known through. We all know our bloodlines, and
Is it clan based?
Yep, clan based, and then there's one big clan that is the biggest, and we come from that clan. And
What clan is that? Sorry?
Vamaga. So that's my clan, and so my father and grandfather, they're all elders in our clan. So and the thing is, there's obviously your clan, then you have your families, and you've still got to be in charge of your family and things like that. So there was a bit of that. You got to lead the way for next, and but because I've lived here nearly 28 years, it's kind of jumped to my brother, which is it's just the way it is, and we just try to make things happen together.
Yeah, I guess there's so much pressure to ride on your shoulders as you look to immigrate to a whole new country.
No,
But like you said, it was about doing what was best for you and what you envisaged to be your new family.
Yes, 100%.
With the banking sector, coming to that side of New Zealand, you mentioned banter and having to somewhat assimilate. You already kind of knew the Western world, somewhat.
Yeah.
But specifically in Aotearoa, in New Zealand, we have quite a different culture. In Christchurch, some would say pretty conservative, especially in the days that you came here. It's not like Okilani or Auckland, where there are Pacific everywhere. In Christchurch, the Pacific community is tiny.
98, it was like spot the brown person in Riccarton Mall, and we're walking and thinking, jeepers, that was a big culture shock.
Yeah. 1998.
Yeah, 1998, and I mean, but this, and it's amazing to see the city to what it is now. It's awesome how Christchurch has changed. But yeah, assimilating the big thing was. That's why I had a lot of time for banking, was that it's no different in any country in the world. The banking is still the same. And because I had done banking in Papua New Guinea, it was easy to do banking here in New Zealand. Everything is still the same, all the processes are still the same. Everything works exactly still the same. So that part wasn't hard for me to get into, the work part. But yeah, just, getting used to the culture, that was a big thing. And
it probably helped though that your fiance, soon to become your wife at that stage, was from Christchurch.
Yeah,
so she was able to give you a good understanding of what people were like.
Yeah, no, and I still remember having a conversation with my ex-mother-in-law, and I remember her telling me that, and it was the sweetest thing she ever, one of the sweetest things she ever said was that, you gotta, one thing you have to be prepared for, she said, my husband and I, we love you dearly, you're our, our daughter's soon-to-be husband, but she did say sometimes in Christchurch in New Zealand, some people don't view it that way. And it was the best thing that was ever said to me, because I had it in the back of my mind that, it's a intermarriage. It's, it could be slightly different in some other people's views, but it never really affected me. I truly believe that, the person that you are shouldn't affect you. Just get on with your life. And yeah.
And like you said, the St. Martin's branch of Westpac was very good. It was like a family.
Exactly.
They treated you really well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which makes a big difference to immigrating to a completely new.
Yeah. And the other thing was rugby. Probably the culture that I should not have got into. I should have got into everything else but rugby culture. But yes, met a lot of friends through sports, especially rugby in particular, and that sort of always linked through different areas as well. So yeah.
Great networking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great friendships that can be built. Yeah. And rugby is, especially at that time, big part of the Kiwi culture.
Oh yeah.
Kiwiana. So for you to be an island boy coming into what I would have imagined a very Balangi club.
Oh yeah.
Rugby club. Yeah. You would have been a superstar.
They thought I was Joel Viteri when I turned up, and then they saw me run and realised, oh gosh.
He's a forward.
Yeah. He'll be in the reserves.
He's a prop.
He'll wear number 16.
Tell me more about the banking sector.
Sure. So
you worked your way up the chain. You start in a certain place.
Yeah.
For anyone that's viewing this episode, maybe give them an understanding of what it takes to work your way up the chain at the bank, what it looks like. And then you eventually became, what I consider as the OG of mortgage advising, mortgage brokering in Christchurch for our Pacific people. I'm sure there's young people out there that want to understand how do you even get to that stage.
So banking, as I was saying, there's processes that are all the same, but I think the big thing about, at the end of the day, banking is still a people job. It's being able to, get along with people, especially your clients on that part, understanding what they want. Like there's different parts of banking. Obviously, when I started as a teller, it was transactional. You're just saying hi, there's withdrawal. But as the bank changed, there's different things that we had to do in banking, and that was one of the best things, was learning from a transactional part. You're just doing withdrawal in and out. You're thinking that's it, but then learning how to, converse with people, because there was another expectation from the bank that it's an opportunity for us to understand our clients. If there's a need, like in insurance, debit card, internet banking, having those conversations, understanding, and then getting somebody to do that. So it was a great place for me to start, especially in that regard, having conversations and actually being able to understand if there is a need or if there is one, if there isn't, knowing and trying to understand what people want. And that was on that teller part, understanding that. Then I fortunately got into the lending part of it, because there's normally a progression from tellers to customer support. In the olden days, the banks were huge, so you had a tellers, customer support, and lending. So in the customer support, that's when, if you were a teller and you'd referred someone, you went to the customer support where you're doing the actual groundwork, and that can be from, as I said, your basic fire and general insurance, your basic life insurance, your basic personal loans, overdrafts. So, that's when those conversations grew to, that yes, it's a form filling part, but for me it was great because you started seeing the importance of why you take this information and try and understand and through the conversation with the client. And then from there, I was fortunate to then go to lending. And when I say fortunate, I shouldn't use the word fortunate, it's working your way, because each area, you only go up the next step if you've proven that you can do the job. You've proven that you're hungry to do the job, and you've proven that you want to progress. So I got into the lending, and the lending was, that was, I know that's what I really enjoyed the most, and I still do to this day, except I do it in a different way of form. It taught me everything that I needed to know about home lending and different types of lending, because then, and you saw that it was essentially everything you learned from a teller, you're still doing it. So that's why I believe, like, if you've got an opportunity to start as a teller, it is an opportunity. Everybody thinks, oh, I want to go and be a lender in the bank straight away. But if you've got an opportunity to start as a teller, or even in the phone areas, the phone assist areas, always take those. Me personally, just take those opportunities as those are opportunities to learn. You got to learn, because if you learn, that's the only thing. Knowledge will take you to the next part. So the banking, as I said, it had great processes and great systems in place for me, because I learned a lot on each stage. You got to, and as I said, lending was my favorite, because it growing up in a family where you didn't own a home and things like that, and seeing that it was the same in my community, Pacific community, and it was a drive for me to help, because I always felt like, look, if I could play a part in helping a family get into a home, that means they'll be able to help their kids and things. So, yeah. And then from there, I left Westpac, and I'd gone to a different bank, Southland Building Society, and that was more customer orientated, because they're an old school building society. They've now changed, and the learnings happened from there as well. I was a business development person that. My job was to try to get investments into the bank, so it was a lot of going out and about and being cold calling in some cases, and learning. So I learned a lot about cold calling, that it is very hard, and it was the best place to learn was to, and especially how to open a conversation, when you're cold calling someone, and all those little tips and tricks, and then through those, as I said, I ended up being a manager. Assistant and bank manager for Westpac in Eastgate, and it was a great branch for me, because that was the area that I sort of, if it's anything, it's the closest to how I grew up, because obviously it's predominantly our communities on that side of town. So I thoroughly enjoyed it there, being able to run a branch. It was almost like a tick, and after that, I didn't see myself progressing anywhere else in the bank. I went to mobile mortgage managing for Westpac, and from there.
What does that even mean? I've always wondered that.
Sure, you're instead of sitting in the office, Westpac mobile mortgage manager is a manager, so you've got the authority to be able to go out and lend money. They're essentially the same as what we do out here as as mortgage brokers. The thing about for a bank is, remember, they're only dealing with one product, which is the bank's product. Whereas we, on the other hand, are fortunate that we can deal with multiple banks, and at least the client knows actually these are all the different banks, and this is what they can do for me. So they're in competition with us. So So
is that why you moved from banking into the mortgage broker, mortgage advising space?
100%, because you were restricted in the bank that you can only have one bank. And as I learned along over the years, you know, one bank only does this, one bank can do this, one bank's policy might allow you to do this. So I felt that I also had an opportunity to be a mobile mortgage manager, a mortgage advisor at a firm in town, contracted to them, and that was one of the big driving factors. Early on in the piece, I used to work with people in the ministries for Pacific Peoples and those different community trusts, and try to work with them and if there was opportunities to help our families, because that was a big thing, is helping our families. And because people go, oh, you know, oh, Samoa and Tonga and Fiji, and at the end of the day, our culture is all still the same. It's, yeah, the islands, we're all the same. We're still, you know, and for a lot of us, you know, home ownership is, some saw back then, they saw it as a dream, as an aspiration, but now many, and it's great, like, you know, not only me, there's many of us around now who, you know, tell our families that it's not aspirational, you can actually achieve it, and then we just help you to get there. You know, all we do is help. You've pretty much done the work on your own because you've done this, this, and this, and yeah. So.
Did you find that you were meeting with Pacific families in the bank that you were unable to help, and you thought that mortgage brokering was a better option for them?
Yeah.
And that was a driver to why you went out into mortgage brokering.
Exactly. And I'll be perfectly honest also, you know, like job satisfaction is a good thing, but it doesn't pay the bills. There was also that income part of it that I know that going out on my own would be better for myself, obviously, and my family.
Because you were contracting.
Yeah, 100%. But yes, helping out. That was always the start of my business, was helping our communities, and it was for a very long time. And as I said, Christchurch has grown. We've got a number of different mortgage advisors who are Pacifica, and it's
only
great
just
for
now.
us.
And
it's great. Yeah, and it's great for us, and it's a really good thing. Our families still go into the bank directly, and I do think that they have the opportunity to actually talk to a number of us, and it's well, I believe it's better anyway.
I think the industry's always it's been evolving, right? Like you're the OG. So I mean, how many years have you been in the industry? Banking and financial advice.
I worked when I was, as I said, 1998. So, oh God, don't make me do the numbers. That's a long time.
Yeah, 27 years. Yeah, so long time.
Yeah.
And I don't know anyone that's been working in the space longer than you from our community. When you were working with these different community trusts and the then Ministry of Pacific Peoples, was there any sort of learnings that you took from working with those organisations as a mortgage advisor?
A lot. It was great working with our communities. The community departments and government departments and different trusts and that. The big thing I learned about those is, sometimes we have a vocation, it's a job, but then there's passion. And big thing was passion of why, and for me, it made clear the whys, because you can say, oh, money does this, but there's a why, and my why was always, and it still is when you help people get into achieve. And I learned a lot of that from the ministries, because I met people who were absolutely fantastic, who were just some of the best people that I needed to meet, and I learned a lot from them. Di Vaniga. She was one of the ones early on. Mel Stanley, one of the ones early on. Selma Scott and dear old Bubsy. And it was amazing. It was a really good thing for me, because I also got involved more in the Pacifica part, because when I worked in banking, and they gave me the opportunity to be a part of things like Dragon's Den. One of the trusts that I was a part of did one of the Dragon's Dens, and it was amazing. And to be able to see all the kids coming in, creating a business idea and things like that. So the best thing I ever did.
And it utilised your skills in the Dragon's Den.
Yeah.
Because you'd spent time with SBS.
Yeah.
bringing in business investment into the bank, that you understood business cases.
Exactly.
Yeah, things like that.
And being,
I think that is that's the perfect marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Public and private, or community, community and private partnerships. And being able, I feel like in the industry, a lot of financial and mortgage advisors will get caught up with, I mean, it's the nature of the job because a lot of it is on commission.
Yeah.
But a lot of them will get caught up in chasing the dollars. KPIs, you know, sales targets, or I don't know if sales targets is the right way to put it. It's just targets.
Yeah.
Because it's moved from sales to advice now, the industry. I feel like being able to partner with community organisations and even government departments and meeting these types of people that have such a passion and commitment to on the ground mahi with our communities, it can help you really not get caught up in the rat race and the crab bucket of financial and mortgage advice, the industry, and reminds you and grounds you. Yeah. Did you kind of find that? That's what I'm taking from.
100%. I'm still part of a trust that I do outside of my work hours, and it as you said, it is the reminder of for me that, you know, there are important things to be part of. You know, everything's important, but for myself, this is something that is a passion for me. You know, the trust with, you know, it's about, you know, I suppose, trying to develop capabilities and all those type of things, and those are things that are important to me, because I always think that what we do is for the future. We're only here for a short term, so if we're able to help be a part of something and make a difference somewhere, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be gigantic, just small. That's good enough anyway.
Why do you think our people, our Pacifica community, and a lot of our families out there, why do you think we can struggle with money? We represent some of the worst statistics as an ethnic community in New Zealand. Why do you think that is?
It's slowly changing now, but I think, I mean, I hate to say it, but we all do it, and I'm the same, is our pressures. We in our communities, there's also that pressure that it's not only, you know, you and your family, there's also your extended family who, you know, how would you call, it's almost ingrained in us that if family needs help, you need to be able to help them financially and things like that. And I do think that affects us, our, you know, our financial situation in some cases, because I know some families send regularly back home. And so, you know, it's a decision that each family makes, and I do think that's one part of it. Job-wise, it's changing. A lot of our families are real hard workers, hard grafters, and a lot of our families, from the ones I've come across anyway, are in roles and industries where it's hard. You know, the hours are, you know, it's tough work. The hourly rates might not be the best, you know, and they're working real hard to support for their families. So, you know, that's that part. You know, I do sometimes think the short-term consumer debt is good. You know, it's okay. You know, if you need something, that makes sense. But sometimes the availability of it and, you know, can affect things, and being able to, you know, purchase something now and, you know, those kind of things, and or send money back home. That's apart from that, I sometimes truly honestly believe that a lot of our families also don't have all the information, because a lot of them, majority of them hardworking grafters, but they don't realize that actually I can afford to buy a house, and so it's having those conversations, because a lot of our families, when the ones I see, when they come in, they think they can't do it because they've heard it from their friend, heard it from somewhere, heard it at work, heard some guy talk about it, but it's until they sit down and you take them through the journey and show them, you know, not everybody's going to be ready now, but let's say we need to get them to be ready in 12 months time, we can work with them Yeah, and a lot of it, as I said, add on to that, it's misinformation. I think a lot of our families also believe they can't until they've actually had a chat, until they've had a chat to someone and know truly that they can't, or yes, you can, but it might not be until the 12 months because we got to do a few things before we get there. Yeah.
Do you think with going back to, we have such big hearts, and going back to having to support extended family or family back in the islands, back home, is there a good way that we can
Yeah, I just say
manage
no.
that? Yeah.
And because I think there is a good way. You know, whether it's just, you know, putting a. I think the biggest thing for me is always this: is being honest, and I've been honest, and those are the hardest conversations when you got to tell your mother, I can't. You know, anybody else, oh, it's easy. No, I just say no. But when you got to tell your mum, that's the hard one, and I think the easiest thing is actually just saying it, to be perfectly honest. But if you're the other way inclined, where you feel it is a good thing you need to do, then it is, if we can, because a majority of us, let's be honest, in New Zealand are church-going people. So if you can tithe, I don't see why we can't try to make an allowance for that. That would be one way, like whether, and letting family know this is all I can do, because I've had to do that. You know, as much as I'd love to, you know, help my brother, help my sister, help my nephews and nieces, you know, it's just not possible. And it's having those conversations, but as you said, making an allowance, whether you're just putting X amount away, but the thing is, it can't be to the detriment of your family, your own family, your children. They cannot, you know, go without. That's my argument anyway.
That's the way, right?
Yeah.
Like you're weighing up being a generous, showing love through the money, because there is, rightly so, a perception that because you're in New Zealand or Australia, that you must be earning really good money and enough for the cream to be sent back.
Yeah, 100%.
But I guess living in a Western society, you also have to play the Western game.
Yeah.
And it's not like in the islands where there's potentially big amounts of land that is shared and thought of communally, and you own all of that land together as a big family. In New Zealand, you have to buy a block. Exactly. This is your block of land that you have to buy in New Zealand. And generally you have to save to achieve that, put down a deposit, and then you've got a massive loan on that property, on that home that you're buying, that you don't necessarily have to do back in the islands, right?
Exactly.
So do you think by setting aside some money that you can have as an emergency fund, an account, bank account, that money's trickled into, in a similar way that money's trickled into the church, that's a good way to attack it, and also coupling it with, hey, look, I can't right now because we're saving for a home. After we buy our home, then we might be able to give.
That's it. And because there's a lot of pressures. Like, I mean, this year alone, the amount of deaths I've had back home, and I've had to send money, is, you know, it's ridiculous.
Well, you're a part of the biggest clan.
Exactly. And you know, and it's I say that, you know, tongue in cheek, when I say ridiculous, you know, and I've, you know, as I said, I was born and raised back in Papua New Guinea. I grew up very strongly in our culture there. So as much as I see it as, you know, sometimes it's still part of, you know, and that's why I truly understand our families here, because it's part of, you know, how we were brought up. Because, you know, in the olden days, one family went and did gardening and grew all the taros and yams. The others were fisher people. They went and did fishing. The others were the hunters. They went and got all the pig meat, wallaby meat, whatever meat. And when you bartered, you know, you were, you know, if something happened like that, you were bringing food products and that. Whereas now it's, you know, like everywhere, cash is king. So, you know, you gotta, you know, so that's the way I look at it, is that I try to tell people, like, you know, especially back home, like in the olden days, we did this. Now we're trying to do money side of things. We have to understand that it doesn't just grow on trees. It's got to come from somewhere. So you got to understand that part. But yeah, there is that. It's not a. Somebody was saying, oh, I remember hearing somewhere somebody said, oh, some of our families try to, show off or whatever. It's actually not. It's unfortunately not unfortunately. It's just. It's almost an unwritten rule that this is something that each family has to do and each person has to do. And as I said, you only give what you can, and that's always been, as much as I said I had to give money, it's only what I could afford. I've still got to pay a mortgage, still got to pay insurances, and still got to live. I like my coffee, so I can't go without coffee. So.
Fair enough. I can't either. When it comes to you mentioned a lack of information or a lack of knowledge for our people. How do you think is the best way to achieve that? What do we need to do?
This is one of the things I've always done. If I'm talking to and I always, my disclaimer here is I'm not saying that our people are uneducated. They're not. It's the information that there's specific information about home lending that some of our families don't know. So when I'm sitting with them, it's just about doing that part of it, because our families can do all kinds of things, man. Our history, and it's no different to Papua New Guinea. These guys grew freaking gigantic wakas and the biggest ocean in the whole world, and they went across it. So we are smart, intelligent people. So, and that's what I just got to make clear. It's not about any of that. It's just about the part about home lending. And I believe that, especially if you're, doing that part of it, it's that education of showing our family, because sometimes they think, oh, we're paying rent, money's going into KiwiSaver. I don't know if we can afford to do a house. And one of the big steps I've always done with a lot of my families who are new, absolutely new to home lending, is to show them that they can actually already do it. And by way of that is when I'm talking to someone, let's say they're rented for 5 years at the same place. There's that history that shows 5 years of $500 a week that has not been missed. That's the biggest thing that I will always try to show to the bank, that my client is consistent at $500, that's $2,000 a month. That's a good chunk of mortgage. So when I sit with my client, our especially in our community, when I show them that, they go, hey, I say, yeah, because your mortgage is going to replace this. You've already done it. You've already paid $2,000. So first tick, you can do that. And then it's coming to the other piece where if it's slightly more than that, it's also telling, especially my Pacific customers around that, as our community is, you always go through this mortgage, but you got to remember now there's rates, there's insurance. So it's that education piece. I try to go and match with them that we know that rates per week and insurance might be X amount. You're already paying rent. Now let's have a challenge of the next 6 months. Let's just take that amount that we've calculated that's going to be the insurance and the rates. You put it into that savings account. So for the next 6 months, they've already proven that rent they've already paid, and then they paid that extra for the next 6 months. That there's two things going to happen, and they're going to prove to themselves that yes, we can pay rent, mortgage, we can pay insurance, and we can pay rates. We can do all of that. It's allowed for. But also at the end, I mean, if you're looking at, let's say, $100 a week or $50 a week, that's still $200 a month. And what's that? 1,800 in 6 months. They've created savings for themselves anyway. But it's showing that they can do it. So it's around that education piece, because, and going through each step of how it works, because sometimes our families don't know what the cost is, because the cost to buy a home is up there. You pay for a lawyer, you pay for the valuation, builder's report. So it's just having those conversations of the costs, who's involved in the journey. But the big thing, as I said, is that education piece. People want to know they can do it. And that's the way I find is the easiest. If it's families with, let's say, consumer debt, personal loans or vehicles or all those kind of finances, they do affect your maximum borrowing amount. So in some of these cases, it's having that honest conversation with them, is showing them two parts. If those personal loans, if you're paying them and they're done by the time it's meant to, I've already shown you that if this is gone, repaid and closed, you can afford to do a mortgage. So we're showing them two parts to it. as well. Not all our families, and not all our families have consumer debt. I've got to make that clear. But I'm just saying each one is different that I work along with. But that's the biggest thing that I always try to do is just educate that yes, you can, you can, and that's rent. We're paying rent now. What average is probably 450, 500 a week. That's
Probably Christchurch.
yeah, and that's a good amount of
Auckland will be
mortgage.
more.
Yeah, that's a good amount of mortgage, and we can still find houses in Christchurch, fortunately, for a good, decent price, unless you want a flash one. But
What would be, from your learnings, 27 years in the industry, what would be your 3 biggest tips for any of our Pacific people that want to get into their first home?
yeah, so the first one, as I said previously, is that having we've got KiwiSaver. KiwiSaver's there for us to buy a first home or retirement. I always try to say to my clients as well is put some savings aside at the same time, because you gotta be able to prove to yourself that you can do it. That's that part. The other things to try to make it easy as possible is that when you if you've got debts or you've got those kind of things, credit card, afterpay, personal loans, all that. It's I mean, it's not humanly possible to get rid of it all at once, but if you're working at each one to try to minimize it down to, I always think if you've got one loan or one credit card, that's okay. That's you should be able to buy a house with that. It's trying to be in control of the debt that you've got, putting aside some savings on top of KiwiSaver, and the run of the account is a big thing. Sometimes the timing of people, when I mean run of the account, is how your account conduct. Because let's say you've got an automatic payment that goes to pay the rent, but it always gets dishonored because your pay comes the day after, and it still gets paid. It's just that the timing part. So it's even as little as that, making sure that dates are changed where there is no dishonors or late payments, because remember, power is the same, all those things. If you're up to date with it, making sure those small things, because the bank, they see all of those things, and it's just, you're not going to be absolutely perfect, and the banks don't require somebody to be the most perfect person in the world, but it's just as long as you're in control of the account is one of my big things. Those would be, that's about 3, is it? Or is that 2?
Well, I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
What are the things that the banks don't want people to... What are some of those hidden secrets?
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
It's not just the banks, it might be mortgage advisors as well.
Yeah.
What are those little secrets that people can understand that might just help them get themselves over the line with getting into these first homes? Because it's tough now, right? And a lot of our people have to think outside the box to get into their first homes.
I mean, I still do, I've done this and I still do it, to this day, is our families sometimes buy big homes. Let's say it's a 4-bedroom or that's their way, and it will be mum and dad, and it will be another family member. There is nothing wrong with doing that. That is my, because that is, for our families, they believe that is the best way to do it. And so if it's tough now to get into first homes, there is nothing wrong with siblings going in together, buying a home together, owning a home, and things like that. So as you said, thinking outside the square. It doesn't always have to be mum and dad buying the home, it might be mum and dad and all the sibling, or however it wants to be. We want it to be structured. Don't just look at it as just going to be 2 people. It can be 3 people buying a house together, but and then there's other conversations after that I have with them. Obviously, in terms of ownership, having those, independent legal advice, proper discussions with solicitors. I won't go into that into too much thing, but it's having, we do that because it's part course of what we do, making sure each person understands what it means when you're all buying a house together. So that's one way. I've seen it in different communities. They do that. What they do in some cases is they might all buy the house and they help someone pay their mortgage off, and then help the next person buy the house. You know, there's different ways of looking at things and making it work.
I know, well, you could call it pre-COVID, you could call it pre-GFC. There have been points in time where the house prices compared to your income, as a multiplier of your income, total household income's been a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when my parents bought their first home, the house price was 3.5 times their income, right?
Yep.
Now, in certain parts of the country, it could be 6 to 8 times your income.
Yeah.
If people have a mum, a dad, grandparents that own a property at the moment, is there a way for them to utilise potentially a freehold home or a home with a lot of parents own most of it? Is there a way for them to use those existing homes that are part of the wider family to help them get into their first home?
100% there is. And I've got examples, obviously, that I won't go into too much detail, but I've done that over the years where, you know, let's say the parents own it unencumbered, no lending against it. So they've been able to use that as part of the security and to assist the, you know, the child or the whoever's buying the home, along with their KiwiSaver, to then, you know, be able to borrow. Because the thing is, whenever you have less than 20% deposit, the interest rates can be different. What I mean by
Higher,
that,
right?
higher. And there are some banks who do the kainga or a first home loan who will offer you the special rates. But, you know, sometimes they're limited in terms of what they can give and things. But what I'm saying is, just got to understand that if you have 20%, it's far better. And if you have more than that, even better, because you're eligible for special rates and whatever offerings that are given. But the point, and to your question, yes, I have done where we have been able to use family, use the equity in their property to be able to secure property for the child. And the thing we're going to be also always mindful of in that case is, if there's a number of siblings, is everybody's on board. Because you don't want the coming out to a point where the others are going, oh, you've used mum and dad just to go buy your house, what about us? And I think it's always going to be a family conversation, and that's what we do. We're all good at that. We can sit down and explain how things work, and also the solicitor, they've got to also be involved, whether the mum and dad's house is put in a trust to protect it, and the others can, So there are 100%, there are ways we can make that work.
Good legal frameworks for, you know, have a family meeting. There's some good legal agreements in the background to make sure that, you know, all the siblings are
and not only that,
fair.
And you don't want to affect mum and dad's house, sort of work probably 2 jobs each to get that house put in place. You know, they work real hard or whatever it is. Just make sure you're protecting that part of it so they don't go without as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of our people don't understand that some of those properties that are sitting out there can be used as a way to buy other property.
Exactly, because sometimes people think, oh, I've got to sell it and get the cash. No, man, if you've got it, because some of our families might have houses in some of the best parts of different parts of the country, Auckland, Wellington, that our values are X amount, and, you know, we can have those discussions to help. And, you know, I work with people all the way from Kaitai all the way down to the Bluff, so your clients are all over the place and things.
Yeah. And people aren't needing to take that cash out. When you say equity, it's all just on paper, right?
Yes.
The parents, the grandparents aren't actually having to go to the bank and say, I need some cash to then give to my grandchild or my child for them to buy their first home. It's actually just all on paper.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, as I said, we just got to, if there's a number of siblings, we just got to make sure that, you know, everybody's on board, because, you know, using the property for one, and then if there's potential for the next, you know, just making sure those. But 100%, it's not a, hey, you got to go and withdraw it, do a top up, give it to the kids or whatever. It can be done that way. There's different parts of lease resistance is something I always use a lot. So if there's a way to make it that the process is smoother, I'll always have a conversation with the client to go, you know, this is possibly just a way to consider, a different way to look at things.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Danté. Cheers.